Number 13 is annoying because we have yet another no line reference question, and so we need to kind of figure out where to read. But in this case, we definitely know that we're dealing with a no line reference question because the question itself is so specific. So it's not like we need to think about the entire passage for this. They're asking for a very narrow fact. Why are they talking about a relative's birthday? And we could just skim for that idea, but remember, we also have the chronology rule, which can help us skim in the right place. Now, there is no question before this one with a line reference, but after it, we do have question 15, because 14 is also no line reference, but question 15 tells us line 26. So we would assume that this question follows the chronology rule and is somewhere before line 26. Now, as we saw, we already had a question that didn't follow the chronology rule, so who knows, maybe this one does too. But again, always start by obeying the rule. It's going to narrow your focus to fewer lines, and we can always read more if we need to. So let's see, we're looking for something about a relative's birthday, and I'm going to kind of skim here, and we get to birthday right here. Line number 20. So that is where we should expect to find the answer. Now, we should read around that to get the context and make sure we understand what's going on. So it says, I'm going to just basically read this paragraph. Wegner, the senior author of the study, believes the new findings show that the internet has become part of a transactive memory source, a method by which our brains compartmentalize information. First hypothesized by Wegner in 1985, transactive memory exists in many forms, as when a husband relies on his wife to remember a relative's birthday. It is this whole network of memory where you don't have to remember everything in the world yourself, he says. You just have to remember who knows it. Well, okay, here's a dumb summary of what's going on. I can tell that they're using this as a sort of example, right? When they say as when, this birthday thing is an example of some kind. So that's going to help me sort through the choices. So let's take a look. The purpose of it is to show that people who are closely related tend to have shared memories. No. First of all, it doesn't say anything about how close or loosely related people are. Like, that's not part of this at all. And they're not really, like shared memory is also a phrase that has a lot of, strength to it. But even just for the fact that they say closely related, that's enough to be wrong. That's a strong phrase that I'd be nervous about regardless. So let's just leave it at that. Choice B, demonstrate how people initially developed external sources of memory. Well, they're definitely talking about memory here. Maybe we're getting lost in the science and we're having trouble with phrases like external sources of memory. But how is a word that's doing a lot of work here. It's also a strong word. And that's the thing, is we normally overlook a word like how. It's 3 letters, it barely, seems to matter. There's a lot more stuff in this choice that seems important and sciencey and related to the topic of the passage. But how is one of those words on the SAT that you want to train your brain to notice? Because maybe they're showing that people initially developed external sources of memory. But to show how that happens, we need to see an entire process. This is a fleeting example that they just kind of show and then move on. So we're not getting into the how of anything. So that strong word is enough to get rid of that choice. And then choice C, emphasize the effectiveness and accuracy of transactive memory sources. Well, they're definitely talking about transactive memory sources, right? We have that right before it in this sentence, transactive memory. But I don't really see anything about it being particularly effective or accurate. They're not evaluating what it is. Like I said, they're providing an example. They're not necessarily saying whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, or at least that's not the main point. So this is a good example where the SAT, especially on science passages, knows that you get overwhelmed by all these new vocabulary words. And so what it likes to do is copy a word from the choices and paste it into the answers, so that way you're kind of like, oh, it's there and it's here, it must be right. Now, of course, that same phrase is also in choice D, and that is the answer, so there's a little bit of that going on in both choices. So it doesn't necessarily make something right or wrong if they do that copy-paste thing. But my point is just that we need more than that, right? We need more than just the phrase being repeated. We need the ideas to be repeated. And in choice D, illustrate the concept of a transactive memory source using a familiar situation, otherwise known as an example, right? So our dumb summary matches with our choice here. It's pretty clear that this is just an example, and we're not getting into the specifics of that example in the choice, right? That's more what C is doing, and that's why C is wrong. It's too specific. D kind of says the same thing as C, but without all the extra baggage. And a lot of times on the SAT, weaker choices are better because they don't go too far. They don't say too much. And so in this case, all of the wrong answers had strong words that kind of caused problems for us. Look out for strong words. Train your brain to notice them, and you'll start to see a lot of trap answers, and you'll be much more confident as you cross things out.